We're continuing in the book called Lubbul-Kifaya. That's a summary of Kifayatul Akhyar. Kifayatul Akhyar by Al-Hisni. That's one of those classical Shafi'i works. That's an explanation of Abu Shuja'. He's a Syrian scholar. Al-Hisni, his book, what we're reading is not exactly his book. This is a summary of that. So if you think the details we've been going over are nice, which they are, well, that book has way more details. So this is just a summary of Kifayatul Akhyar, Lubbul Kifaya. And we've reached the Eclipse prayer. And so the author says, قال المصنف رحمه الله, says the author, may Allah have mercy upon him, Fasl, section, ويصلي لكسوف الشمس وخسوف القمر ركعتين. 2 cycles are prayed for the solar eclipse and the lunar eclipse. So that's the copy of Abu Shuja' that I'm translating from here. وَيُصَلِّي لِكُسُوفِ الشَّمْسِ وَخُسُوفِ الْقَمَرِ رَكَعَتَيْنِ. The copy that you're seeing on your screen, it doesn't mention solar and lunar. It just says kusuf, that's the solar eclipse. The translation itself just says the eclipse prayer. The Arabic says the solar eclipse prayer and doesn't mention the lunar eclipse. The very first line, I mean. It's going to mention it afterwards. So I'm just pointing out the difference in the copies of the original manual for you. The text of Abu Shuja' has lots of versions. Although it's very, very, very famous document of Shafi'i school. One of the famous beginning Shafi'i matins, yani for the beginners. في كل ركعة قيامان. In each raka'ah, one stands twice. So that means he's going to be standing initially, then he's going to bend over for ruku', and he's going to stand up again. Yani, when he stands the first time, initially, he's going to recite Al-Fatiha. Then he makes ruku'. Then he stands up again and he recites Al-Fatiha again before making sujood. So those are the 2 standings in each raka'ah. في كل ركعة قيامان. Each cycle has 2 standings. يطيل القراءة فيهما. And in those 2 standings, the recitation should be extended. وَرُكُوعًا, and each one of those raka'ahs has 2 bows. يطيل التسبيح فيهما. In both of them, he should extend the sayings of Subhanallah. Duna sujud, but not for the sujood. He shouldn't extend for sujood. Ash-sharhu, the explanation. So, any of you ever prayed Eclipse prayer? I prayed Eclipse prayer once. Ash-sharhu, the explanation. اعلم أن الكسوف والخسوف يطلق على الشمس والقمر جميعا. Know that kusuf with a kaf and khusuf with a kha, each one of those 2 can be used for the solar eclipse and for the lunar eclipse. Yani, nah. نعم الأجود كما قاله الجوهري أن الكسوف للشمس. Yes, what's most proper though, like Al-Jawhari said, is that kusuf with a kaf is the solar eclipse, while khusuf with a kha is the lunar eclipse. Kusuf and khusuf. I'll tell you how I remembered the difference between them and didn't mix them. Because you have two words here, kusuf and khusuf. I already know Shams and I already know Qamar. Okay, sun and moon. Now, how I'm going to not mix up these two, kusuf and khusuf. So, what made me remember them is that khusuf with a kha goes with al-qamar with a qaf, and kha is not an English letter, and qaf is not an English letter. So I remembered that khusuf goes with qamar because it starts with a kha, and qamar starts with a kha, with a qaf. As for kusuf shams, kusuf is a kaf. We use that letter in English, kaf. And shams, sheen, we use the sound sheen. So then I was able to remember them and not mix them. وَالصَّلَاةُ لَهُمَا sunnah, and praying for these two occurrences is a prophetic recommendation. لِقَوْلِهِ صَلَّى اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِ وَسَلَّمَ, because of the Prophet عليه الصلاة والسلام saying, إِنَّ الشَّمْسَ وَالْقَمَرَ لا ينكسفان لموت أحد ولا لحياته. Indeed, the sun and the moon do not, there would not be an eclipse for either one of them because someone died, nor because someone was alive or born. فإذا رأيتم ذلك فصلوا وادعوا الله تعالى. So when you see that, yani when you see an eclipse, then pray to God and supplicate to Him. رواه الشيخان. That was narrated by the two sheikhs. وفي رواية مسلم, and in Imam Muslim's version, ادعوا الله وصلوا حتى ينكشف ما بكم. According to Muslim's rendition, the Prophet said, alayhi salatu wassalam, call upon God and pray until what afflicts you is relieved. ثم يجوز أن يصليها كصلاة الصبح. Furthermore, it's permissible to pray this prayer like dawn prayer. فإن أراد فعلها بقيامين في كل ركعة. But if one wants, he can pray eclipse prayer by having two standings in each rak'ah. وكل منهما سنة مؤكدة. Both of those are an emphatic sunnah. Emphatic sunnah means the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam never left it out, whether residing or traveling. ثم يجوز أن يصليها كصلاة الصبح. So if somebody wants to pray this prayer, he could pray it like two normal rak'ahs, and if he wants, he can pray it with two standings in each rak'ah. Either way, it's an emphasized sunnah. فإن فاتت هذه الصلاة لم تقض. If this prayer is missed, then it is not to be made up. Why? Because it's not a prayer related to a special time. It's a prayer related to a special reason. وأقلها, the minimum of the eclipse prayer is أن يحرم بنية صلاة الكسوف, to make the intention to pray eclipse prayer. when you say Allahu Akbar. وَيَقْرَأ الْفَاتِحَةِ, and then to recite Al-Fatiha. وَيَرْكَعْ, and then to bow. ثُمَّ يَرْفَعْ, and then to stand up. فَيَقْرَأ الْفَاتِحَةِ, and then to recite Al-Fatiha again. ثُمَّ يَرْكَعْ ثَانِيَةً, and then to bow again a second time. ثُمَّ يَرْفَعْ, and then to stand up. وَيَطْمَئِنْ, and to be still for a moment. ثُمَّ يَسْجُدَ, and then to prostrate. فَهَذِهِ رَكَعَةٌ, all of this is a single raka'ah. ثُمَّ يُصَلِّي ثَانِيَةً, and then one would pray the next raka'ah like that. ثَانِيَةً كَذَلِكَ فَهِيَ كَرَكَعَتَانِ فِي كُلِّ رَكَعَةٍ قِيَامًا فهي ركعتان في كل ركعة قيامان وركوعان. And so this prayer is 2 rak'ahs, and in each rak'ah is 2 standings and 2 bows. And he recites Al-Fatiha in each standing. So this is the minimum of excellence, the minimum of excellence. وَالْأَكْمَلُ, but the most excellent is في هذه, concerning this prayer, أن يقرأ في القيام الأول بعد الفاتحة, is for one to recite after Al-Fatiha while he's standing, وما يستحب من الافتتاح وغيره, and after saying everything that's recommended to be said, even the opening dua and anything else. Surah Al-Baqarah. So that's recommended. To recite Surah Al-Baqarah. فَإِن لَمْ يُحْسِنْهَا قَرَأَ بِقَدْرِهَا. If he doesn't know it, then he recites as much as it takes, as much time as Al-Baqarah takes. وَفِي الْقِيَامِ الثَّانِيَةِ كَمِئَتَيْ آيَةٍ. And then in the second standing, not the second raka'ah, the second standing, one recites as long as 200 verses from Al-Baqarah. وفي القيام الثالث يقرأ قدر 150 آية. And in the third standing, one recites 150 verses. وفي الرابع قدر 100. And in the fourth standing, one should recite the amount of 100 verses. So that's long. رواه الشيخان عن ابن عباس رضي الله عنهما. الشيخان narrated that from the route of Ibn Abbas. May Allah accept from him and his father. ويستحب أن يطول في الركوع الأول بالتسبيح. And it's recommended to extend the first bowing by saying Subhanallah قدر 100 آية من البقرة. To do this tasbih for the duration of reciting 100 verses from Al-Baqarah while making ruku'. Yes, so it's recommended to extend in the first ruku' by saying as many statements of Subhanallah that take the amount of 100 verses of Surah Al-Baqarah. وفي الثاني 80 آية. And then in the second standing, to stand as long as 80 verses. وفي الثالث 70 آية. And in the third standing, 70 verses. وفي الرابع قدر 50 آية. And in the fourth standing, the amount of 50 ayahs. لمجيئه في الخبر, because that came in a report. ولا يطول السجود كالاعتدال على ما قال الرافعي. Now as for prostrating, making sujud, you don't make that long, Like irtidal. That's what Ar-Rafi'i said. Irtidal when you stand up from ruku'. What does one do if he doesn't know 100 verses? He can recite anything there. This is just the best. Yeah, and he doesn't have to recite any surahs there, but he can recite any surahs there. لكن صحح النووي التطويل. However, an-Nawawi deemed what's correct is to extend that. قال وثبت في الصحيح. That's an-Nawawi said that's confirmed in the authentic hadiths. ونص عليه الشافعي في البويطي, and Ash-Shafi'i spoke about that explicitly according to the documents of Al-Buwayti. وَتُسْتَحَبُّ الْجَمَاعَةُ فِي صَلَاةِ الْكُسُوفِ, and it's recommended to pray this eclipse prayer in congregation. وَيُنَادَى لَهَا الصَّلَاةُ جَامِعَةً, and that the way to summon the Muslims to this prayer is not by calling adhan and iqamah, but by saying as-salatu jami'ah. Wallahu a'lam, and Allah knows best. قال المصنف رحمه الله, said the author, may Allah have mercy upon him. ويخطب بعدها خطبتين, then the Imam, after the prayer, he gives two speeches. ويسر في كسوف الشمس ويجهر في خسوف القمر, and when he prays during the eclipse, he will pray with a low voice in the solar eclipse, and he will recite aloud for the lunar eclipse. الشرح, the explanation, يسن أن يخطب بعد الصلاة خطبتين. So it is recommended that he delivers the speech after the prayers. That he would deliver two speeches, khutbatain, كخطبتي الجمعة, like doing Friday prayer, like doing the speech there. لفعله صلى الله عليه وسلم الذي رواه مسلم. That's due to what the Prophet did, sallallahu alayhi wasallam, as narrated by Muslim. وَفِيهِ قَامَ فَخَطَبَ, and in that report, it's documented that the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam got up and he delivered a speech. فَأَثْنَى عَلَى اللَّهِ تَعَالَى, and he praised God, and he said, يعني إلى أن قال, until he said, يا أمة محمد, O nation of Muhammad, Wallahi lo ta'lamuna ma a'lam, by God, had you known what I know, la dhahiktum qalila, you would have smiled little, wa la bakaytum kathira, and you would have plenty of crying. Ala hal balaght, hear ye, have I not delivered? وروى الخطبة جمع من الصحابة في الصحيح, a group of companions narrated this khutbah it's documented in the books, in the authentic books. وينبغي أن يحرضهم على الإعتاق والصدقة ويحذرهم الغفلة, and when the Imam gives this speech, he should encourage them, demand of them to free a slave and to give charity and not to be rude. وَيُحَذِّرُهُمْ الْغَفْلَةِ, I said rude, yani not to be heedless, not to be oblivious. وفي صحيح البخاري أنه عليه الصلاة والسلام أمر بالعتاقة في كسوف القمر, It is recorded in Al-Bukhari's authentic book that the Prophet ﷺ commanded for for emancipation to be done. Amara bil itaqati. He commanded for emancipating slaves. Fi kusuf al-qamar, during the lunar eclipse. وَمَنْ صَلَّى مُنْفَرِدًا لَمْ يَخْطُبْ. But anyone who prayed alone shouldn't deliver a speech. وَيُسْتَحَبُّ الْجَهْرُ بِالْقِرَاءَةِ فِي خُسُوفِ الْقَمَرِ. And it's recommended to recite out loud during the lunar eclipse. وَالْإِسْرَارُ فِي كُسُوفِ الشَّمْسِ. And to recite low for the solar eclipse. جاءت به السنة. That's the way of the prophetic way. أما الجهر في القمر. But concerning reciting aloud for the lunar eclipse, ففي الصحيح, that's narrated in the authentic books. وأما الإسرار. So as for the what should be recited low, At-Tirmidhi said it's a Hasan Sahih hadith. وصححه ابن حبان والحاكم. And Ibn Hibban and Al-Hakim both narrated this. So Ibn Hibban, صححه ابن حبان والحاكم. Ibn Hibban and Al-Hakim authenticated this. وقال إنه على شرط الشيخين. And Al-Hakim said this is according to the conditions. This fulfills the conditions of Al-Bukhari and Muslim. Do you have any question I can answer for you?